The sun was setting on the New York City skyline, painting the skyscrapers with golden hues as Emily Carter Williams gazed out the panoramic window of her penthouse suite in the Williams Tower. Her fingers nervously tapped on the marble windowsill as her mind tried to process the events of the last 48 hours. What should have been the beginning of a new life alongside Richard Williams, one of the most powerful men on Wall Street, had transformed into a Kafka-esque nightmare. Her brown eyes, still marked by smudged mascara from shed tears, focused on her reflection in the glass. The designer black dress she wore now seemed like an omen of the morning that consumed her. Richard had suffered a sudden illness right after the lavish wedding that had brought together the cream of New York and international society. The doctors spoke of natural causes, but something in the chief family physician's gaze had aroused her suspicions. The sound of firm footsteps in the marble hallway brought her back to reality. Thomas Henderson, Richard's personal lawyer for over 2 decades, entered the suite accompanied by 2 assistants carrying folders full of documents. His austere face showed no emotion whatsoever. "Mrs. Williams," he began, his voice controlled and professional, "we need to discuss urgent matters related to Mr. Williams' will." Emily nodded mechanically, indicating the Italian leather armchairs in the center of the room. As they settled in, she noticed that Henderson seemed tenser than usual, his restless fingers constantly adjusting his silk tie. "As you may imagine, Mr. Williams was meticulous in his business and personal arrangements," Henderson continued, opening one of the folders. "However, there was a significant alteration to his will a few days before the wedding." Emily's heart raced. As an investigative journalist, she had developed a sixth sense for detecting when something important was about to be revealed. "What kind of alteration?" Henderson cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "The majority of Mr. Williams' assets, including controlling interest in Williams Enterprises, has been allocated to a foundation called Aurora Global Initiative. You will receive a generous lifelong pension in the New York penthouse, but—" "Wait," Emily interrupted, leaning forward. "I've never heard of this foundation. Richard never mentioned it in our conversations about philanthropy." "The foundation was recently registered," Henderson explained, consulting his documents. "Apparently it will be managed by an independent board, with oversight from Jason Williams, Mr. Williams' eldest son." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Jason had never hidden his antipathy towards her, considering her an opportunist who had seduced his father. During their courtship and engagement, he had done everything to sabotage the relationship. "This doesn't make sense," she declared, standing up to pace the room. "Richard explicitly told me he wanted me to actively participate in managing his businesses. He even introduced me to several board members." Henderson exchanged significant looks with his assistants before continuing. "Mrs. Williams, I understand your confusion, but the document is legitimate. All legal formalities were observed." Something in the way he emphasized the word legitimate caught Emily's attention. Her years of experience as an investigative journalist had taught her to detect subtleties in people's behavior. "May I see the original document?" she asked, keeping her tone casual. Henderson hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Of course, it's right here." As he searched among the folders, Emily watched his hands closely. They trembled slightly. Henderson had always been known for his unwavering composure. Something was definitely wrong. The document he handed her seemed impeccable at first glance. Richard's signature was there, along with all the necessary stamps and certifications. But there was something— "This isn't the pen Richard used for important documents," she murmured, more to herself than to those present. "Excuse me?" Henderson asked, raising an eyebrow. Richard was superstitious about certain things, Emily explained, her eyes fixed on the document. He always used a specific pen to sign important documents, an old Mont Blanc that belonged to his father. He told me it was his lucky charm in business. The silence that followed was deafening. Henderson cleared his throat again, this time more forcefully. "Mrs. Williams, with all due respect, details about the pen used to sign the document are irrelevant from a legal standpoint." Emily returned the will, her mind working at 1,000 miles per hour. "Of course, you're right. Forgive my silly observation." She forced a smile. "I imagine there are more documents to review?" For the next hour, Henderson presented a series of papers that required her signature. Emily signed them all mechanically, but her mind was far away. Something much bigger was happening, and she needed to figure out what. After the lawyers left, Emily waited a few minutes before heading to Richard's private office in the penthouse. As his wife, she had free access to all rooms, but something made her check if she wasn't being watched before entering. The office was a perfect reflection of Richard's personality, elegant, organized, and with meticulous attention to detail. Rare paintings adorned the walls, and an imposing mahogany desk dominated the center of the room. Emily began to systematically examine each drawer and cabinet, although she didn't know exactly what she was looking for. It was when her fingers touched something strange under the edge of the desk. A small button, almost imperceptible. When she pressed it, she heard a soft click coming from the wall behind the desk. A panel opened, revealing a built-in safe. "You were always full of secrets, weren't you, Richard?" she murmured, her heart racing. The safe was locked with a digital password system. Emily spent the next few minutes trying different combinations that might be significant to Richard. Nothing worked. Frustrated, she was about to give up when she remembered something he had said during a romantic dinner in Paris, weeks before the wedding. "The most important moment of my life wasn't when I closed my first big deal," he had said, his eyes shining with emotion. "It was when I saw you for the first time at that press conference in London." With trembling fingers, Emily typed in the date of that meeting, 04172022. The safe opened with a soft hum. Inside, there was a brown leather folder, a flash drive, and a sealed envelope with her name written in Richard's elegant handwriting. Emily picked up the envelope first, her heart pounding against her chest. Upon opening it, she found a single sheet of paper with just a few lines. "My beloved Emily, if you're reading this, it means my suspicions were correct. There are powerful forces working in the shadows, and I discovered something I should never have discovered. The flash drive contains information that can change everything, but it can also put your life at risk. Trust only in Sam, my former head of security. He knows what to do. With all my love, Richard." Emily barely had time to process what she had read when she heard voices in the hallway. She quickly put the envelope in her purse along with the flash drive. The leather folder was too big to hide, so she left it in the safe, closing it just as the office door opened. Jason Williams entered, his face contorted in an expression of displeasure upon seeing her. "What are you doing here?" he asked dryly. "Just reminiscing," Emily responded, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "This place holds so many memories. Isn't it enough that you manipulated my father in life? Now you want to rummage through his things?" Jason attacked, approaching menacingly. "Don't think I don't know what you're doing. You may have fooled my father, but you won't fool me." Emily straightened her shoulders, facing her stepson's hostile gaze. "I don't have to justify myself to you, Jason. I'm Richard's widow, and I have every right to be here." "For now," he retorted with a cold smile. "Enjoy it while you can. Things are about to change drastically around here." Without waiting for a response, Jason left the office, leaving Emily alone with her turbulent thoughts. She waited a few minutes before leaving as well, her heart still racing from the discovery and the confrontation. Back in her suite, Emily closed the curtains and sat on the edge of the bed, the flash drive weighing in her purse as if it were made of lead. Her hands trembled as she typed on the laptop, inserting the device. The screen flashed, revealing an encrypted folder. Emily tried various passwords, but nothing worked. Frustrated, she remembered Richard's message, "Trust only in Sam." Sam Rodriguez had been Richard's personal head of security for years, until he was mysteriously dismissed weeks before the wedding. Richard never wanted to discuss the matter, saying only that it was an internal issue. With agile fingers, Emily began searching on her cell phone, looking for any information about Sam's whereabouts. After several fruitless attempts, she found a profile on a professional social network. The photo showed the familiar face, keen eyes, serious expression, a discreet scar near the right eyebrow. Without thinking twice, she sent a message. "We need to talk about the past. It's urgent." The response came almost instantly. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Cafe Nero in the Old Market. Come alone." Emily looked out the window, watching the lights of New York City shine against the night sky. Somewhere in that city of contrasts and mysteries was the key to understanding what had really happened to Richard, and she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. In the back of her mind, a warning voice sounded incessantly. If her suspicions were correct, she was about to plunge into much deeper and more dangerous waters than she could imagine. But there was no turning back. Richard had trusted her to continue his mission, and she would not disappoint him. With a deep sigh, Emily stored the flash drive in a secret compartment of her designer handbag. Tomorrow would be a new day, and with it would come the first step in her search for the truth. A truth that, she was beginning to suspect, could shake the foundations of the Williams empire and far beyond. The morning in New York dawned with its characteristic blinding brightness when Emily left the Williams penthouse, dressed discreetly. Jeans, loose t-shirt and a simple scarf. She tried to blend in as her private driver took her through the bustling city streets. Cafe Nero, the location set for her meeting with Sam, was in one of the oldest areas of New York, far from the mirrored skyscrapers and ostentatious luxury. "You can drop me off here," she instructed the driver 2 blocks before the destination. "I'll return to the penthouse on my own." The man hesitated. "Mrs. Williams, I have strict orders not to leave you alone." "Whose orders are these?" Emily asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Young Mr. Jason's," he replied, embarrassed. Emily took a deep breath, controlling her irritation. "I appreciate your loyalty, Kevin, but I'm still the lady of this house, and I'm ordering you to leave me here and return to the penthouse." After a moment of hesitation, Kevin nodded, stopping the car. Before getting out, Emily noticed his concerned look in the rearview mirror. "Please, ma'am, be careful. The Old Market was a maze of narrow alleys and traditional shops, where the aroma of spices mingled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the sweet odor of street food. Emily navigated through tourists and merchants until she found Cafe Nero, a modest establishment hidden in a side alley. Sam was already there, seated in a discreet corner, his back to the wall and his watchful eyes constantly checking the entrance. He hadn't changed much since the last time Emily had seen him. He still maintained the military posture and sharp gaze that made him an excellent head of security. "Mrs. Williams?" he greeted her formally when she sat down. "Were you followed?" "Not that I noticed," she replied, studying his face for clues. "But Jason has put the driver on watch duty." Sam nodded, as if he had already expected this. "Kevin is a good man, but his loyalty is divided. We can't fully trust him." A waiter approached, and Sam ordered coffee for both of them in fluent Spanish. Only when the man walked away did he speak again, his voice low and controlled. "You found the safe?" It wasn't a question, but Emily confirmed with a nod. "And the flash drive. But it's encrypted." "As it should be," Sam replied, his eyes constantly scanning the environment. "The content is too explosive to be left unprotected." The coffee arrived and they paused in their conversation. Emily watched Sam take a sip of the hot drink before continuing. "Why were you dismissed, Sam?" "The real reason." He placed the cup on the saucer with studied care. "Because I discovered something I shouldn't have, something related to the Aurora Global Initiative." Emily leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "The foundation mentioned in the new will. The very same, but it's not an ordinary foundation, Mrs. Williams. It's a front for something much bigger." "What kind of front?" Sam looked around once more before answering. "The kind that involves manipulating the global financial market on a massive scale. Mr. Williams discovered that some very powerful people were using his companies as intermediaries for questionable operations." "What kind of operations?" "The kind that can make fortunes disappear and reappear in offshore accounts without leaving traces. The kind that can influence the price of oil globally. The kind that," he made a significant pause, "can make an empire like Williams appear clean on the outside while hiding a web of corruption on the inside." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. And Richard discovered this. Not only discovered it, he was gathering evidence, preparing to expose everything. That's why he asked me to investigate discreetly. But someone found out. Who? Sam shook his head. It's not that simple. There are layers upon layers of people involved. But I can say it goes far beyond Jason, or even Senator Romani. Senator Romani? Emily frowned. Richard's biggest business rival. Rival in public, partner behind the scenes. Their apparent disputes were just a facade to distract attention from what was really happening. They stopped briefly to check the GPS and verify the coordinates. The sun was already lower on the horizon, and the shadows of the buildings stretched, like dark fingers across the streets. There's one more thing, Sam said as he checked the navigation instruments. On that last night, Richard mentioned a name I had never heard before, Project Lazarus. What's that? I'm not sure, but from the way he spoke, it seemed to be something even bigger than the Phoenix Protocol. He said the evidence was in the bunker, but that it needed to be understood in the correct order. Emily suddenly remembered the sequence of numbers that Maya had sent before being interrupted. Taking out her secure phone, she showed the numbers to Sam. Maya found this encoded in the poetry book. We didn't have time to decipher the meaning. Sam studied the numbers for a moment, his expression subtly changing. This is interesting. Why? What do you see? This pattern, it's similar to a code we used in special operations. See how the numbers are grouped in threes? Each trio could represent a specific location within the bunker. The taxi jolted as it passed over a particularly rough stretch of road. In the distance, the sun was beginning to descend towards the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and red. We're approaching, Sam announced, slowing down. From here on, we need to be extremely cautious. Richard may have installed security systems we don't know about. Emily observed the seemingly desolate landscape. At first glance, there was nothing but abandoned warehouses and some scattered rock formations. But her trained journalist eyes began to notice small details, subtle marks on the ground that seemed too regular to be natural, a strange pattern in the rocks that could indicate a camouflaged structure. There, Sam pointed to a specific rock formation. See how the coloration of the rock is slightly different at that point? It's artificial, designed to blend in with the natural environment. They parked the car behind a high pile of rubble, concealing it from view. The sun was now dangerously close to the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the ground. From here we go on foot, Sam instructed, grabbing a backpack with equipment. And Emily. He paused, his serious eyes meeting hers. Whatever we find in there, be prepared. Some secrets have the power to change not just lives, but the entire world. Emily nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Somewhere in that hidden structure were the answers that Richard had died trying to protect, and she was determined to find them, no matter the cost. The wind blew stronger, raising small whirlwinds of dust around them. On the horizon, the sun continued its inexorable journey towards the west, like a silent countdown for what was to come. The rock formation concealing the entrance to the bunker was a masterpiece of camouflage. From a distance, it looked like just another of the countless natural elevations that dotted the landscape. Only upon approaching could Emily perceive the subtle signs of human intervention, angles slightly too precise, artificially uniform textures, patterns that nature would never create. The deactivated solar panel should be around here, Sam murmured, his experienced eyes examining the rock surface. Richard was always meticulous with details. Here. He pointed to what appeared to be an old solar panel, covered in dust and seemingly abandoned. Emily watched as Sam carefully cleaned the surface, revealing an almost invisible digital panel. The sequence, Emily remembered, 147258369. Sam typed in the numbers, and a soft click echoed in the silence of the abandoned area. A section of the rock slid to the side, revealing a narrow entrance. Impressive, Emily whispered. How did he manage to build this without anyone finding out? Richard had resources and connections that even his family didn't know about, Sam replied, taking flashlights out of the backpack. This place was probably built years ago, long before he discovered the truth about the Aurora initiative. They entered cautiously. The air inside was surprisingly fresh, indicating a sophisticated ventilation system. The walls were reinforced concrete with exposed pipes and electrical cables on the ceiling. The main generator must be running on solar power, Sam observed, noticing the LED lights that turned on automatically as they advanced. Richard thought of everything. The main corridor led to a circular room that appeared to be the bunker's operations center. Turned-off monitors covered an entire wall, and in the center was a work desk with several computers. Maya's numbers. Emily remembered taking out her phone. You said they could be locations within the bunker. Sam examined the sequence again. Yes, it looks like a cataloging system. See, there are corresponding numbers on the drawers and cabinets. Following the code, they began to open specific compartments. Each one revealed a new piece of the puzzle: documents, computer drives, carefully organized photographs. Look at this, Emily called, holding a folder marked Project Lazarus, Phase 1. It's the project you mentioned. Inside the folder was a detailed report that made Emily's blood run cold. Project Lazarus was much more than a financial scheme. It was a meticulous plan to restructure the global economic system. This is unbelievable, she murmured as she read. They don't just want to manipulate markets, they want to create a new world financial order. How so? The Phoenix Protocol is just the first phase. They plan to use the Aurora Initiative to provoke a controlled crisis that will mainly affect emerging economies. When markets collapse, the Bank of Milton and other partner institutions will offer a solution, a new global financial system, fully digital and controlled by them. Sam picked up other documents, his eyes widening as he read. And here's the rest of the plan. After the new system is implemented, they'll have total control over international transactions, monetary policies, even which countries can or cannot have access to financial resources. Virtually unlimited power, Emily completed, the magnitude of the conspiracy finally revealing itself. And everything will appear perfectly legal and natural to the outside world. They continued exploring the files, each discovery more impressive than the last. There were lists of involved politicians and businessmen, details on offshore accounts, media manipulation strategies to control the narrative when the plan was put into action. Here, Sam pointed to a specific folder. Records of Aurora Initiative board meetings. Look at the date of the next meeting. Tomorrow, Emily whispered. The meeting that Jason called. That's when they'll initiate the Phoenix Protocol. All the pieces are in place. The Bank of Milton executives, the board members, even the media companies that will control the narrative when markets start to fall. Emily sat in the nearest chair, her mind processing all the implications. That's why Richard decided to act now. He discovered that the plan was about to be executed. And that's why they couldn't risk him interfering, Sam completed grimly. A sudden noise made them freeze. It was low, almost imperceptible, but in the silence of the bunker it sounded like an alarm. Someone's coming, Sam whispered, already in motion. Quick, grab the essentials. We need to use the emergency exit. Emily quickly gathered the most important documents, including all the material on Project Lazarus. Her fingers found one last flash drive, hidden in a secret compartment of the desk. There was a simple label. For Emily, the final truth. The sound of approaching vehicles was now unmistakable. Sam guided Emily through a side corridor, activating a mechanism that revealed a narrow passage. Richard showed me the blueprints of this place years ago, he explained as they advanced. This exit leads to a different point in the area, far from where we left the car. How did they find us? There must be some security system we didn't know about, or... Sam hesitated. Or someone followed us from New York. They emerged at a point about half a mile from the main entrance. The sun had set completely, and the darkness was broken only by the stars and distant lights approaching the bunker. We need to split up, Sam decided. You have the most important evidence. Go to Point C, the apartment in Newark. It's the only truly safe place now. And you? I'll create a distraction, give them something to chase. We'll meet in Newark in 24 hours. Before Emily could protest, Sam had already disappeared into the darkness. She could see the headlights of vehicles approaching the main entrance of the bunker, and distant voices echoing in the night. Clutching the bag with the documents to her chest, she began her journey across the terrain. The flash drive with Richard's final message seemed to burn in her pocket, but this wasn't the moment to discover its contents. First, she needed to survive the night in this dangerous area. Then, she would have to find a way to expose the truth before it was too late. The clock was ticking, and in less than 24 hours the Phoenix Protocol would be initiated, unless she could stop it. The night in the abandoned industrial area was a cloak of absolute darkness, broken only by the distant glow of stars. Emily walked determinedly, using them as a guide according to the navigation instructions Sam had taught her. The air was cold now, a brutal contrast to the scorching heat of the day. After 2 hours of careful walking among the debris and abandoned structures, she finally spotted the lights of the main road. A solitary gas station shone like a beacon in the darkness. It was one of the safe points that Sam had established in his contingency plan. The gas station attendant, a middle-aged Hispanic man, just nodded when she mentioned the agreed code. Minutes later, a discreet taxi parked at the back of the establishment. "Newark," she instructed the driver, leaning back in the rear seat as the car headed to the main highway. During the 2-hour trip to Newark, Emily remained vigilant, constantly checking if they weren't being followed. Her thoughts, however, were focused on the flash drive that Richard had left especially for her. The safe apartment in Newark was in a discreet residential building in the Ironbound neighborhood. It was a strategically chosen location, busy enough not to draw attention, but with multiple escape routes if necessary. As soon as she entered the apartment, Emily activated the security protocols that Sam had installed. The bulletproof windows closed automatically, and an electronic interference system was activated to prevent any kind of surveillance. With slightly trembling hands, she connected the flash drive to the secure laptop. A single folder appeared on the screen, containing a video file and a digital letter. Emily opened the letter first. "My beloved Emily, if you're reading this, it means you found the bunker and discovered the truth about Project Lazarus. But there's something else you need to know, something I kept hidden from everyone, even from Sam." The video accompanying this message contains a conversation I secretly recorded with my father William 3 months ago. What I discovered that day changed everything. Watch the video. Then you'll understand why I had to act and why I trusted only you to continue this mission. With all my love, Richard. With her heart racing, Emily started the video. The image showed Richard's private office in the penthouse. William Williams was seated in the leather armchair, his ebony cane resting beside him. Richard was standing by the window. "You don't understand, Dad," Richard's voice sounded tense. "Project Lazarus goes beyond simple financial manipulation. It's a complete restructuring of the world order." "That's precisely why it must be done," William responded with studied calm. "The world is changing, my son. True power is no longer in the hands of governments or armies, but in control of the global financial system. But what about the millions of people who will be affected? Families will lose everything." "Necessary sacrifices for a greater good," William declared coldly. "When the Phoenix Protocol is activated and markets collapse, we'll offer the solution. A new financial system fully controlled by us. Entire countries will depend on our approval to carry out any international transaction." "This is madness. Dad, it's practically a global financial dictatorship." "It's evolution, Richard. The consortium didn't spend decades building this network of influence for nothing. The Bank of Milton, the Aurora Initiative, everything was carefully planned. And now finally we're ready to take the next step." The recording continued, revealing shocking details about how the plan had been orchestrated over decades. William was not just a participant, he was one of the main architects of the scheme from the beginning. But the most surprising revelation came at the end of the video. "There's something else you need to understand, Richard," William said, his voice taking on a darker tone. "The real power behind the consortium, it's not us, we're just executors of a much larger plan." "What are you talking about? Have you ever heard of the Thule Group?" The video ended abruptly at this point. Emily remained motionless for several minutes, processing everything she had just seen and heard. The Thule Group. She had already encountered references to This name in her previous journalistic investigations always connected to theories about secret organizations that controlled global finances. Her secure phone vibrated with a message from Sarah. Olivia is safe. She managed to decipher more codes from the book. There's something about the Thule Group you need to know. Meeting in 1 hour at the attached address. Another message arrived, this time from an unknown number. Mrs. Williams, this is Henderson. I know you have no reason to trust me, but there's something I need to tell you about William and the Thule Group. It's about their true plan for tomorrow. Emily looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. In less than 12 hours, the Aurora Initiative Board meeting would begin, and the Phoenix Protocol would be activated. But now she knew there was something even bigger at stake. Her journalistic instinct told her that both Sarah and Henderson were telling the truth, or at least part of it. The question was, who to trust? And more importantly, how to stop a plan that had been meticulously architected for decades. The answer, she suspected, was somehow connected to the mysterious Thule Group, and she had less than 12 hours to figure out what that connection was and how to use it to prevent a global catastrophe. Taking her laptop, Emily began to organize all the information she had collected so far. On a wall of the apartment, she started to assemble a mental map with photos, documents, and notes, connecting the dots with colored threads. The Consortium, the Aurora Initiative, the Bank of Milton, Project Lazarus, the Phoenix Protocol. Everything was interconnected in a complex web of power and manipulation. And at the center of this web, a new piece of the puzzle, the enigmatic Thule Group. Her phone vibrated again. It was Sam. Arrived in Newark, have crucial information about tomorrow's meeting and about the Thule Group. Meeting in 30 minutes at Point D. Emily looked once more at the map on the wall. Each person who was trying to contact her now, Sarah, Henderson, Sam, possessed a different piece of the puzzle. The trick would be to figure out how these pieces fit together, and fast. Grabbing her bag, she checked the bunker documents one more time. Among them, one in particular caught her attention, a list of geographical coordinates. Comparing with a map, she realized they marked specific locations in New York and Newark. "What were you trying to show me, Richard?" she murmured, studying the pattern of points on the map. It was then that she realized the points formed a pattern similar to the symbol she had briefly seen in some Thule Group documents. It wasn't just a list of locations, it was a coded message. The sun was beginning to rise on the Newark horizon, its first lights reflecting off the glass and steel skyscrapers. Somewhere in that city, the answers she was looking for were waiting, and time was running out. The morning in Newark dawned with a blinding clarity when Emily arrived at the location marked for her meeting with Sam, a traditional diner in the old market district. The movement of merchants and buyers was beginning to grow, offering the perfect environment to go unnoticed. Sam was already there, seated at a discreet table in the back of the establishment. His face showed signs of fatigue, but his eyes remained as alert as ever. "The coordinates you found," he said as soon as she sat down, "aren't just random locations. They're access points to an underground communication network." "The Thule Groups?" "Exactly. They built this infrastructure decades ago, long before the first New York skyscrapers. It's how they managed to operate without being detected." Emily took her laptop out of her bag, showing Sam the map she had assembled. Each point corresponds to an important building, bank headquarters, government offices, and all connected to the most advanced fiber optic system in the world, Sam completed. That's how they managed to manipulate markets in real time, without leaving digital traces. But why would William reveal this to Richard? Why tell him about the Thule Group? "Because he had no choice," a familiar voice answered. "Emily and E." Sam turned in surprise. Henderson was standing there, leaning on his old cane. Before they could react, he raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I didn't come as an enemy," he said, sitting down with them. "I came because it's time for the truth to be revealed, all of it." Henderson took an envelope from his jacket, placing it on the table. "This document proves that William isn't really the patriarch of the Thule Group. He's just an executor, like me. The real controllers are much more powerful and much older. "What are you talking about?" Emily asked, her journalistic instinct sharpened. "The Thule Group has existed for centuries," Henderson explained. "They built a parallel financial system, operating in the shadows while governments and empires rose and fell. Project Lazarus isn't just about economic control. It's about establishing a new world order." "And why are you telling us this now?" Sam questioned, still distrustful. "Because Richard discovered something that not even William knew," Henderson responded, his voice lowering. "The Phoenix Protocol isn't the end of the plan, it's just the beginning. After the markets collapse and the new system is implemented, the Thule Group plans to use the Aurora Initiative for something much bigger." "What exactly?" Emily pressed. "A global social control system." A new voice joined the conversation. It was Sarah, who approached the table silently. "The financial crisis is just the first phase. When countries are desperate for stability, the Thule Group will offer a solution, a single digital identification and transaction system, which will give them total control over who can or cannot participate in the global economy," Olivia completed, appearing beside Sarah. "Every transaction, every financial movement, every economic decision, everything will pass through their control." Emily looked at the group gathered there, each representing a different piece of the puzzle. "That's why Richard decided to act," she understood. "He saw that the plan went far beyond simple financial manipulation, and that's why he prepared a contingency plan," Henderson revealed, "something that not even William suspects." From the envelope he had brought, Henderson took out more documents. Richard spent the last few months secretly transferring evidence to journalists and authorities around the world. Everything is scheduled to be automatically revealed if certain protocols aren't followed. "A digital life insurance," Olivia explained. "If the Phoenix Protocol is activated today, systems around the world will start releasing information about the Thule Group, Project Lazarus, everything." "But that won't be enough to stop them," Sam argued. "They have too much power, too much influence." "That's why Richard left one last ace up his sleeve," Sarah smiled, "something he entrusted only to Emily." All eyes turned to her. Emily frowned, confused, until a sudden thought hit her. The book of Sufi poetry. It wasn't just a code for the bunker coordinates. Quickly she opened the book she still carried with her. Between its pages, certain verses were subtly marked. They weren't just poems. They were instructions. "It's a sequence," she murmured, the pieces falling into place. Each marked verse corresponds to a specific action. Together they form an emergency protocol. Olivia examined the verses, her eyes widening. "This is brilliant. They're commands to activate a dormant virus in the Thule Group's systems. If executed during the board meeting, it will expose all their operations in real time," Henderson completed. "Every secret transaction, every hidden connection, everything broadcast live to the whole world. But for that, someone needs to be inside the meeting room," Sam warned. "Someone with access to the main systems. And that's why we're all here," Sarah declared. "Each of us has a crucial role to play in the next few hours." The group spent the next hour meticulously, planning every detail. Henderson, still officially the family lawyer, would ensure Emily's access to the meeting. Olivia would prepare the code for the digital attack. Sam and Sarah would coordinate an external support network. When they left the diner, the sun was already high in the Newark sky. In a few hours, the Aurora Initiative Board would meet on the 50th floor of the Williams Tower in New York. It would be the decisive moment, not just for Emily, but for the future of the global financial system. In the car on the way to New York, Emily read one last time the letter Richard had left on the flash drive. "My beloved Emily, truth is like the desert sun. No matter how hard they try to hide it, it always finds a way to shine. I trust you, to be that ray of light that pierces through the shadows. True power isn't in control or manipulation, but in the courage to do what's right, no matter the cost. That's why I chose you, not just as my wife, but as the guardian of this truth. The future is now in your hands. With eternal love, Richard." Putting away the letter, Emily looked out the car window. The sun reflected off the New York skyscrapers, turning them into towers of light. Somewhere in that city of mirrors and shadows, a group of people was planning to reshape the world according to their own distorted vision of power. But they had made one crucial mistake. They underestimated the power of truth. And more importantly, they underestimated the determination of a woman to honor the memory of the man she loved. The car approached the Williams Tower, its elongated shadow projecting over the city like an omen. In less than an hour, the board meeting would begin, and with it, the fate of millions would be decided. Emily touched the poetry book in her bag, feeling its reassuring weight. Inside it, centuries-old verses held the power to expose a modern conspiracy. It was an irony that would have made Richard smile. The tower loomed before her, imposing and challenging. It was time to conclude the mission that Richard had begun. It was time to bring light to the shadows. It was time for the final truth. The Williams Tower stood like a monolith of glass and steel against the New York City skyline, its 50 stories reaching towards the heavens, as if challenging the very gods of finance. Emily's heart raced as she stepped out of the car, her eyes scanning the busy street for any signs of surveillance or danger. Henderson was waiting for her in the lobby, his face a mask of professional detachment. "Mrs. Williams," he greeted her formally, "the board is assembling on the 50th floor. We should hurry." As they rode the elevator in tense silence, Emily's mind raced through the plan they had meticulously crafted. Olivia would be remotely connected to the building systems, ready to unleash the virus at the perfect moment. Sam and Sarah were positioned strategically around the building, ready to provide backup if needed. The elevator doors opened to reveal a luxurious reception area. Through the glass walls, Emily could see the board members already gathering in. The main conference room. Her eyes locked with Jason's for a brief moment, and she saw a flicker of surprise and anger cross his face. "You're not supposed to be here," he hissed, approaching them quickly. "On the contrary," Henderson interjected, smoothly. "As Richard's widow and a major shareholder, Mrs. Williams has every right to attend this meeting." Before Jason could protest further, William Williams himself emerged from the conference room. His face was a study in controlled surprise as he saw Emily. "My dear," he said, his voice honey-smooth, "what an unexpected pleasure. Please join us, we were just about to begin." Emily followed William into the conference room, acutely aware of the eyes of every board member upon her. She recognized faces from Richard's files, powerful men and women from across the globe, each a key player in the grand design of the Aurora Initiative. As she took her seat, she noticed a familiar face at the far end of the table. Mark Milton, CEO of the Bank of Milton, nodded curtly in her direction. His presence confirmed everything Richard had uncovered: the connections between the bank, the initiative, and the looming financial catastrophe they were about to unleash. William called the meeting to order, his voice resonating with authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at the precipice of a new era. Today we initiate the Phoenix Protocol, the culmination of decades of planning and preparation." Emily's hand tightened around the poetry book in her lap as William began to outline the details of their plan. With each word, the true scope of the conspiracy unfolded before her. It was exactly as Richard had discovered, a carefully orchestrated financial collapse that would reshape the global economy, concentrating unprecedented power in the hands of a select few. As William spoke, Emily's eyes darted to the clock on the wall. In precisely 7 minutes, Olivia would activate the virus. She needed to stall to ensure that the most damning information was revealed at the perfect moment. "I have a question," Emily said, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. All eyes turned to her, a mix of curiosity and wariness in their gazes. "Of course, my dear," William said, a patronizing smile on his face. "What would you like to know?" "I'm curious about the role of the Thule Group in all of this," she said, watching as a ripple of tension passed through the room. "After all, they're the true architects of this plan, aren't they?" The silence that followed was deafening. William's smile froze, his eyes hardening as he regarded Emily with new suspicion. "I'm not sure where you heard that name," he began carefully, "but I can assure you—" "Oh, I think we're well past assurances, don't you?" Emily interrupted, standing up. She opened the poetry book, reciting a specific verse that activated the hidden cameras Olivia had placed in the room. "I think it's time for some truth." At that moment, The large screens around the conference room flickered to life. Files, emails, bank transactions, all the evidence Richard had meticulously gathered, began to stream across the displays. The board members watched in horror as their carefully guarded secrets were laid bare for all to see. "What is the meaning of this?" Jason shouted, lunging towards Emily. But Sam, who had been posing as security personnel, intercepted him smoothly. William's face had turned ashen. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said, his voice a mixture of anger and fear. "The Thule Group, they won't allow this." "The Thule Group's time is over," Emily declared, her voice firm. "As we speak, this information is being broadcast to news outlets and authorities worldwide. The entire network exposed." Chaos erupted in the conference room. Board members scrambled for their phones, desperately trying to damage control. Mark Milton slumped in his chair, the reality of his bank's impending collapse hitting him like a physical blow. Amidst the pandemonium, Emily felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Henderson, a look of grudging respect on his face. "Richard would be proud," he said softly. "But this isn't over. The Thule Group, they have contingencies we can't even imagine." As if on cue, the lights in the building flickered. The screens went dark for a moment before a new image appeared, a symbol Emily recognized from Richard's files, the mark of the Thule Group. A voice, digitally altered and eerily calm, filled the room. "You believe you've won, but this is merely the beginning. The phoenix will rise from these ashes stronger than ever." Emily felt a chill run down her spine, but she steeled herself. She had come too far to back down now. "Then we'll be ready," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent room. "The truth will always find a way to shine." As sirens began to wail in the distance and the first news helicopters appeared outside the tower's windows, Emily knew that this was indeed just the beginning. The exposure of the Aurora Initiative and the Phoenix Protocol was a significant blow, but the war against the shadowy forces that sought to control the world's finances was far from over. She thought of Richard, of his sacrifice and his trust in her. She thought of the millions of lives that hung in the balance, and she knew with unshakable certainty that she would see this through to the end, whatever the cost. The sun was setting over New York City, painting the sky in hues of orange and red.